Bienvenidos. Welcome back to our channel. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about Puerto Rican gangs, both on the island and here in the United States. Some people consider the Nietas to be just an inmates' rights group or a brotherhood. Others consider them to be a prison gang. After watching this video, you make up your own mind. The Nietas' traditional enemies are the G27, who mostly came from the Manuel A. Perez housing projects located in the city of San Juan. The G27 were known as being ruthless and random killers who preyed on the people from around the Monacio area in Rio Piedras, Puerto Rico. The Nieta were originally formed to combat the G27 predators that they encountered in prison. Most sources agree. Both these groups formed around the same time at Oso Blanco prison, located in Rio Padres. The G27 inmates were derogatorily called insectos by the Nietas, as, according to the Nietas, they would even hurt women, children, and elderly out on the streets. The Nieta would try to use this Robin Hood image to portray themselves as being freedom fighters, but they too are often killers who control approximately 75% of the drugs that are found in the Puerto Rican correction system. Today, it is recognized by most that the Nietas are the largest gang in Puerto Rico, and as we'll see here later, they also have a large presence in the United States. The feud escalated during the late 1970s prison riots that caused a lot of tension inside Puerto Rican penal institutions, and over 50 deaths occurred as a result. For Nieta prison gang expert Warden Luis Rosa, the Puerto Rican prison riots first began in earnest at the Bayamon Regional Jail. It later spread to La Princesa, and one riot in 1976 resulted in 20 inmates being wounded during the disturbance. According to Warden Rosa, there are approximately 14,000 inmates in the Puerto Rican prison system, and approximately 60% are Nieta members. Per Commander Gilberto Negron Falcon, who was an officer in the Puerto Rican Administration of Corrections in 1978, the Nietas were barely evolving at the time. An inmate named Carlos Torres Irararte, moniker La Sombra, had formed the Pro-Inmate Rights Association and became the recognized leader of that group, also known as La Asociación Nieta. Meanwhile, the G27 formed a rival, pro-quality of life for inmates. Because of this major conflict, the G27 killed La Sombra on orders of their leader, Mickey Manotas Santito. And on March 30th, 1981, La Sombra was stabbed by G27 member Ito El Loco 3 times and then shot with a .22 caliber weapon by an inmate named Gandhi. According to legend, the last words he said were puñeta, which is a derogatory word frequently used among some Puerto Rican people, and he died as a result of his wounds. In retaliation, La Manota was killed and stabbed over 400 times by Nietas. And to this day, Nieta and G27 have to be separated into different units in Puerto Rico. Some prison officials have made the analogy that Nietas are a big tree with many branches. And again, they state they are not a security threat group or prison gang, but are a prisoners' rights group. Nevertheless, they have amassed a lot of power over other inmates in custody. Some of the early leaders of the Nietas after La Sombra were killed were Benjamin Guzman Rivera, who later became a president of the group, Bonifacio Lopez Rivera, who became vice president, and David Davidito Santiago Irizarry, who became their general secretary. Other important figures were Luis Rosado, who was a Nietas general, and Carlos Cáceres, who was president of the Commission to Improve the Quality of Life, which reaches beyond prison walls and even has outside political power. These Nietas often attend public meetings, large public rallies, and smaller meetings, and sometimes have their pictures taken with Puerto Rican politicians. It should be noted that inmates in the Puerto Rican prison system continue to have the right to vote. Nietas use this lobby effectively to get what they want. Together with their family members, these nietas hold a powerful voting bloc or lobby. It is important to note that in Puerto Rico, prison gangs do not claim their prison groups out in free society. They claim their barrios, but they will often send money and drugs to the prison leadership and do favors for them in case of future incarceration. Other Nieta shot callers use the Dialogue Committee and the Discipline Board to gain favor with corrections administrators. Each institution has its own leaders, such as Marcial Navarro, who was very close to La Sombra and fought with him during the prison wars. Last I checked, the maximum Nieta leader was their official president, Saturnino Rivera Adondo, also known as Pincaso, who was incarcerated at the Malvinas prison. Let me know if that is correct. An example of their power was on September 16, 1998. Prison administrators moved out the top Nieta leadership out of Oso Blanco. Before they did, they allowed inmates to make a grito or shout out over the prison's public address system. New Secretary Zoe Laboy ordered them moved out, but to avoid a riot and major disturbance, she allowed them to address the group prior to being transferred out. Once they were done with the matricula or grito, they yelled out Nieta 3 times, which according to legend were the last words of Carlos Torres Iriarte, La Sombra. In the United States, Nietas mostly operate in a few large East Coast cities that have large Puerto Rican populations. They can be found in New York, parts of New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, and Florida, as well as Massachusetts. They are not widespread in other parts of the U.S., but they may have members incarcerated at different Federal Bureau of Prison facilities located all across the U.S. Nietas are also active at the Rikers Island, New York City jail complexes and other detention facilities in and around the state of New York. According to confiscated documents from a New York City Nietas member, there are 7 steps to initiation. They also have an oath called La Oración Nieta and have 24 norms or rules. These may vary in other areas. Nietas have an estimated membership of 5,000 members in the United States. Some even carry identification cards. There is no requirement to recruit 20 new members, as some U.S. sources have alleged, but they will often attempt to indoctrinate non-affiliated Puerto Rican prisoners to join them. Each Nietas chapter has a hierarchy or leadership structure, including a president, vice president, a treasurer, a disciplinarian, and a coordinator who organizes monthly meetings. Prospective Nietas members are required to participate during a probationary period before they are formally blessed in to membership held by each chapter at an annual universal held on March 30th of each year. As many of you know, the Puerto Rican flag is blue, white, and red, but there are some differences from Nietas on the island compared to those in the United States. For one, they do not use the color red, as that is a G27 color. 150, 1.5, and 150% is commonly used in the Puerto Rican system by Nietas. They may also say Soy Boricua or 150% Boricua. This stands for Boriquen, which is the original name in Puerto Rico as the Taino Indians referred to it. They may also have NDC, meaning Nietas de Corazón, or Nietas from the heart. Their hand sign is the index and middle finger crossed, as a reflection of the 1.50 meaning, or 150%. Some stateside Nietas from the East Coast refer to this hand sign as the follows. The middle finger over the index finger means Nietas protecting the weak, and the thumb over the 2 fingers on the left is Carlos La Sombra, holding back the G27. In addition to their annual March 30th meetings, they will hold a moment of silence on the 30th of every month and will pray for 5 minutes in the memory of La Sombra. Investigators should check close for Nietas tattoos, as they may hide the hand sign within a Jesus tattoo. Nietas chapters in the United States are organized by state and operate independently of one another. Each chapter generally consists of 5 to 9 elected members, but the number may vary by chapter. Depending on the size of the chapter, the committee may include a primero or first, a segundo or second, moderator, a sergeant of order, a secretary, a coordinator, and a vocal or board member. Yet there's chapters in the United States that operate out in the community often accept female members. And in some chapters, females even assume leadership positions, such as La Madrina, or Godmother, or La Primera Dama, the First Lady. For instance, on April 30th, 2001, a federal judge from the Eastern District of New York sentenced a Madrina to life in prison for ordering the murder of a rival Nieta leader in January 1995. The victim was shot in the head as he answered the door of his Brooklyn apartment. Stateside Puerto Ricans, especially those from the East Coast, seem to have a much stronger patriotic sense of pride, even than those who reside on the island. An example of this was the release of Machetero, or Puerto Rican terrorist group affiliates from the BOP. Most were born or raised in the States, but were engaged in many violent incidents, including bombings, as protests for the independence of Puerto Rico. Yet those have been very visible in Puerto Rican Day parades in the United States. And as in Puerto Rico, they consider themselves to be a higher quality inmate than the G27. Again, in the States, you'll often see the colors of the Puerto Rican flag, red, white, and blue, with black sometimes being substituted for the blue. According to Warden Rosa, from his experience managing United States Marshals Service custody Nietas G27 and G25 inmates, they are able to live together under one flag. They will have a leadership rep from each group in their housing areas. This is different from what occurs in Puerto Rico.
Besides a strict code of rules for members of the association, Nieta also dictates who's permitted to live within the walls of the facility it controls. Inmates who have committed certain crimes that Nieta considers wrong must be transferred to protective custody or be killed.
We call them insects, bugs. They don't get on here. They won't live here. And when they come into jail, we put them up in front of the committee and we check them out. Just tell them, hey, guard, open the door, take this guy out. He can, and they'll say he don't live here. He can't live here, and he's gone.
Here in the States, they also usually get along with Latin kings, who they call primos, or cousins. There have been some occasions when nietas and kings have gone to war, but they get along more common than not. Some of the crimes that nietas are into are drug dealing, extortion, and intimidation, and intelligence shows they sometimes have performed hits for other gangs. Again, they have a strict set of discipline.
Modelador is the person who carries out the punishment. If you fight with a fellow inmate, you get sanctioned to a punishment. I carry that punishment out.
What would the punishment be?
It can be 3 slaps in the chest. It can be a work detail. You have to do a work detail for a certain amount of time. Things like that. It's not a violent punishment.
Gang members who violated any of the rules were disciplined at ritualized beatings, typically on the 30th of the month, which are dealt out by the chapter's disciplinarian. Nietas state they do not accept sex offenders. They will often accept gay inmates, nor do they accept informants. As stated earlier, the Nietas are deadly rivals of the G27, also known as Group 27 of June 1980. While the G27 were called insectos by the Nietas, the G27 called the Nietas gusanos, or worms. The G27 symbol is a fist with the thumb pointed up, and their main color is red. They have at least 10 rules, and while greatly outnumbered by Nietas, they are still considered to be very dangerous. The G27 leadership structure is based on a numeric system and seniority numbers from 1 to 27, with the highest ranking and senior member being 1, and 27 being the lowest ranking member of the structure. The Supreme G27 chapter is located in Guayama State Prison in Puerto Rico, and it housed one of the G27 founders and leaders for many years, an inmate by the name of Luis Pinela Pizarro, aka El Viejo. And there's also Nuevo Grupo 25, which is a regional gang in Puerto Rico, rarely found in the U.S. They control 2 prisons on the island, in the Mayaguez and Aguadilla areas. At first, the G25 agreed with neither the Nietas or G27 in their war, but later on they did align with Nietas. The NG25 Bacalaos broke off from the G25 Los Huevos faction of the prison gang as a new group after their founder, Mael Pelu Agustini Rosada, was killed on January 25, 1981. Their main color is green, with a fist up in the air to signify strength. They have 25 rules, So I know that was a lot of information to process. I hope that made sense. I'm sure it made some sense to those of you from Puerto Rico or formerly incarcerated inmates of Puerto Rican descent. Let me know if you feel I got anything incorrect. Don't just say you're wrong. Let me know how and why I'm wrong. Thanks for listening and watching, and please be safe. Dios te bendiga. For now, this is Gabe Morales signing off for Gangsters, Cops, and Politicians.